Welcome to our channel. Today, we're diving into a critical topic, the alarming signs of mental health issues in students. We're not going to sugarcoat it. The pressures of adolescence, academic stress, social media, it can all feel like an overwhelming tidal wave sometimes. But amidst the chaos, it's vital to recognize the often subtle signs that someone might be struggling. Recognizing these signs early can make a significant difference. It's like noticing a crack in a bridge. If we address it early on, we can prevent a catastrophic collapse. We often think of mental health as something separate from our everyday lives, but it's interwoven with every aspect of who we are, especially for young people still figuring things out. So, whether you're a student, a parent, an educator, or just a concerned human, this video is for you. Let's equip ourselves with the knowledge to recognize the signs and offer support to those who need it most. Let's start with a big one, school. It's a huge part of a student's life, and often changes in academic performance can be our first clue that something's not quite right. We're not just talking about the occasional bad grade here. I mean a sudden and persistent decline in grades. That straight A student who's now barely scraping by, that's a red flag. And it's not just about the grades themselves. A sudden disinterest in schoolwork, something they used to be passionate about, can be equally telling. They might have always loved history class, but now they're doodling in their notebook, completely checked out. This lack of engagement can be a sign that something deeper is going on. Then there's attendance. We all skip school sometimes. Senioritis is practically a national epidemic, but frequent absences or constantly showing up late, that's different. It can be a sign that a student is struggling to cope with the demands of school or social anxiety. And finally, keep an eye out for difficulties concentrating or making decisions. School requires a lot of mental juggling, and if a student is struggling with their mental health, those everyday tasks can feel insurmountable. They might space out in class, have trouble remembering instructions, or just seem generally overwhelmed by even simple decisions. These can all be signs that something's up. Okay, this one might seem obvious, but sometimes the most obvious signs are the ones we overlook. We all have our ups and downs, but persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness are a major warning sign. If a student seems down in the dumps for an extended period, unable to shake off that feeling of despair, it's time to take notice. And then there's the flip side. Increased irritability, anger, or mood swings that seem out of character. One minute they're laughing, the next they're slamming doors. These emotional roller coasters can be incredibly difficult for both the student and those around them. Another big one, withdrawal. Teenagers are naturally drawn to their friends and social circles, so when a student starts pulling away from the people they care about, it's a sign that something is wrong. They might stop hanging out with their friends, avoid family gatherings, or just generally isolate themselves. And let's not forget about the things they used to love. That soccer team they lived for, the art club that fueled their creativity. If they've suddenly lost interest in activities they once found joy in, it's time to dig a little deeper. Now you might be thinking, physical symptoms, what does that have to do with mental health? Well, the mind and body are inextricably linked, my friends. Mental health issues can manifest in physical ways, and it's crucial to pay attention to these signs. Frequent headaches, stomach aches, or those unexplained aches and pains that just won't quit. These can all be indicators of underlying stress, anxiety, or depression. It's like our bodies are trying to tell us something's wrong, even if we don't have the words for it yet. And speaking of our bodies trying to communicate, let's talk about sleep. We all know teenagers love their sleep, or lack thereof, but significant changes in sleep patterns can be a red flag. Insomnia, where they're tossing and turning all night, unable to quiet their racing minds, is a common symptom of anxiety. On the other hand, excessive sleeping can be a sign of depression. It's like their bodies are trying to escape from the overwhelming weight of their emotions. Either way, drastic changes in sleep patterns warrant attention. And finally, keep an eye out for changes in appetite or weight. We've all been there. Stress eating our feelings or losing our appetite altogether during times of stress. But if you notice significant fluctuations in a student's eating habits or weight, it's essential to approach the situation with sensitivity and concern. Chapter 4. Behavioral changes. Here's the thing. Sometimes when people are hurting, they do things that don't make sense. They might engage in risky behaviors as a way to numb the pain, escape from their reality, or even as a cry for help. Substance abuse is a common coping mechanism, a dangerous attempt to self-medicate and find temporary relief from emotional turmoil. And let's not forget about self-harm. It's a difficult subject to discuss, but it's crucial to address. Self-harm is often a way for individuals to cope with overwhelming emotions, to feel a sense of control when everything else feels out of control. It's a dangerous sign that should never be ignored. We talked about changes in attendance earlier, but sometimes it goes beyond just skipping a class or two. A sudden and intense desire to skip school altogether can be a sign that a student is struggling to cope with the social and academic pressures of their environment. School might feel like a battleground, and avoiding it entirely seems like the only way to survive. And let's not forget about extracurricular activities and social events. These are often the things that bring teenagers joy, that connect them with their peers and foster a sense of belonging. So, when a student who once thrived in these settings starts declining invitations and withdrawing from these activities, it's a sign that something's amiss. Chapter 5. Social Withdrawal. We touched on this briefly earlier, but social withdrawal deserves its own chapter. Humans are social creatures by nature. We crave connection, belonging, and the comfort of our tribe. So, when someone starts actively withdrawing from social interactions, it's a major red flag. This withdrawal can manifest in various ways. They might avoid eye contact, keep their responses short and distant, or just generally seem closed off and uninterested in engaging with others. It's like they've built a wall around themselves, isolating themselves from the world outside. Family relationships often take a hit as well. The once frequent family dinners become filled with awkward silences, conversations with parents become strained, filled with one-word answers and a palpable tension. It's heartbreaking to witness this distance grow between family members, but it's essential to approach the situation with empathy and understanding. And let's not forget about their social circles. Friendships that were once vibrant and full of life might start to fade. The student might distance themselves from their usual group, preferring solitude over the company of others. They might even express feelings of loneliness or isolation, feeling like they don't belong anywhere. Chapter 6. Cognitive changes. Mental health issues don't just impact our emotions and behaviors, they can also affect our cognitive abilities, the very way our brains process information. These changes can be subtle at first, but they can have a significant impact on a student's ability to learn, focus, and navigate their daily lives. One of the most common cognitive changes is difficulty focusing or maintaining attention. It's like their minds are constantly racing, bombarded by a torrent of thoughts and worries, making it nearly impossible to concentrate on the task at hand. They might zone out during class, struggle to follow conversations, or find themselves rereading the same sentence multiple times without absorbing the information. Increased forgetfulness is another telltale sign. They might misplace their belongings, forget appointments, or struggle to recall information they recently learned. It's like their brains are so overwhelmed by everything else that everyday tasks and memories slip through the cracks. Disorganization can also be a symptom of underlying mental health issues. Their once tidy notebooks might become a jumbled mess of papers. Their bedrooms might transform into disaster zones, a physical manifestation of the chaos swirling within their minds. And finally, keep an eye out for paranoia or excessive worry. While it's normal for teenagers to experience occasional anxieties, excessive worry that interferes with their daily lives is a cause for concern. They might constantly overthink situations, imagine the worst-case scenario, or struggle to let go of even minor concerns. Chapter 7. Expressions of hopelessness. This chapter is perhaps the most difficult to discuss, but it's also the most crucial. When a student starts expressing feelings of hopelessness, it's a sign they're struggling. These expressions can be subtle or overt, but they should never be ignored. Statements reflecting a lack of purpose or feelings of worthlessness are major red flags. They might say things like, "What's the point? I'm just a burden," or "I don't deserve to be happy." These statements reveal a deep sense of despair and hopelessness. Conversations about self-harm or suicide must be addressed head-on. Any mention of self-harm or suicide should be taken seriously and addressed with empathy. Feelings of being overwhelmed and powerless can be incredibly isolating and contribute to a sense of hopelessness. Recognizing these signs is crucial for educators, parents, and peers to provide the necessary support. If you or someone you know exhibit several of these indicators, it's important to seek help from a mental health professional. Remember, asking for help is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of incredible strength. It takes courage to acknowledge that you're struggling and to reach out for support. Early intervention can make a significant difference in a student's life. It can provide them with the tools and resources they need to navigate their emotions, build resilience, and thrive. Mental health is just as important as physical health, and ignoring the signs can have devastating consequences. Thank you for watching. Stay aware, stay supportive, and let's work together to create a world where mental health is treated with the same importance as physical health. Please like, subscribe, and comment with your suggestions.